What's up, buddy?
Just happy to be here with you guys.
We're happy that you are here with us. What awards have you won since we last saw you?
Funny
Because I know there's been something.
that you should ask. So we actually just this week got results back from the SIP Awards.
Really?
And so the SIP Awards, it's really the only nationally kind of syndicated consumer competition, right?
Okay.
So most of these competitions are through, the international, this, or, the world, that. But this is the consumer side. And that's the most important thing, right? Because we're selling to consumers, not to the experts.
Right. Real
So
people.
super happy. We took 2 double golds, and the double golds were for our double rye and for our Hunting Creek. And that's a new product, new release. So this is the first double gold for the Hunting Creek. So really excited about that. And then we got a couple of golds to tag on as well. So
I was partially joking when I said, "What awards have you won?" But of course,
so
there
everybody
were some.
thinks that we kind of prompted you. No, it just, and I didn't hear. I think Heath, my wingman over here, told us 2 days ago. So yeah,
Wow,
very exciting.
So explain the Hunting Creek thing, because that's a special one for
So
you.
it is special. And right now it's a fairly new release. We just released it last year. It's only available in the North Carolina market. While it's new for us, it's the oldest brand in our portfolio. So it's a heritage brand. You guys have heard me talk about the history of distilling in North Carolina, and particularly Statesville. So it was a really big deal prior to 1903, right? And Hunting Creek was the most widely distributed brand coming out of North Carolina. And then after we were forced into Prohibition in 1903, it was abandoned. And so Vienna and I picked up Hunting Creek and a couple of other heritage brands. Hunting Creek is the first one that we're going to release. So we released it exactly 120 years after it was banned and taken out of the national marketplace. But so rumor says, and there's not a lot of records to really go back and look at this, but upwards of 30,000, I think, cases at a time were shipped out by rail. So pretty big deal back in the day.
That's a huge number when you think about the difference in the population of the country between then and now, right?
Yeah, the country was basically the East Coast 130 years ago.
So when you decide you want to take a brand like that was a big deal, 100 and some years ago, how do you have a recipe or a bill, as you call, right?
So,
a bill, do I have that right? It's a bill?
Yeah.
I'm getting good at this.
Yeah. So it's a mash bill.
Yeah.
And so our recipe is a mash bill, and that's basically the amount of grain, each grain that we have. And usually there's 3 grains, sometimes there's 4 grains, but typically it's 3 grains. And obviously with the rye is the predominant grain. And so no, we did not have the recipe. We knew what the old packaging looked like. And we've tried to retain everything in the old packaging. So the typography, the iconography, we've added a couple of new little twists here and there. The biggest shift in the packaging is that the original package had this old guy with a really worn out looking, horse, and a stag draped across the top of it, and a pretty worn out looking dog. And I was like, this is not super appealing, right?
Right.
And so we
happier dog.
Yeah, so we actually did an RFP, and we went out to several artists actually around the world and said, we want you to look at this. We want to kind of live into this theme, but we got to make it look less worn out. We got to make it, got to bring it up and make it look more appealing. And so the guy that actually ended up winning the contract, he's from the Isle of Wight in Britain, right?
Really?
And I was like, wait a minute. So now it's this beautiful goddess of the hunt, as I call it, with her beautiful German short hair pointer and some pheasants that she's taken. I was like, that looks really familiar. Well, it's my daughter with 10 years, put on her because she's only 15. So we wanted her to look legal. So they made her look like she was 25. The dog is my dog Scout. I was like, you win. You've got the contract. So we kind of cheated there a little bit.
Somebody
but,
did their homework is what it sounded like.
So the old man is now a woman.
The old man is now the woman that we call the goddess of the hunt, right? Exactly.
So that whole thing is amazing to me, especially the idea that whiskey, rye, bourbon, fill in the blank, 130 years ago is essentially the same as it is today, right? I mean,
Well, some things have changed. So 130 years ago, bourbon wasn't the thing that it is today. So in those days, again, as we talk about, distillation in general in the United States, but particularly in the Carolinas, we were primarily producing rye whiskeys and then a lot of corn whiskey. We grew corn. Corn was easy to grow. It has a lot of sugar. Sugar is what makes the ethanol.
right.
Bourbon became a thing later, but it was 75 years later before bourbon really begins to see its rebirth. And quite frankly, last 20 years that bourbon has just been on this huge tear, this big rise, in popularity. And now we see it growing, not just enjoyed here in the U.S., but now it's really becoming enjoyed throughout the world.
As a rye drinker, I'm all here for it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So will that eventually be outside the North Carolina market?
Yeah.
or-
So, you've probably heard me say this before, but you got to win at home. North Carolina, Charlotte, this is home. So, anything that we do new, we want to do it really, really well here. And then we're going to move it outside. So, yeah, you'll see that expand into some of the other markets throughout the U.S., but it'll kind of radiate from around North Carolina and then move out from there.
Kind of like you will in the Great Race.
And
You'll be
just
radiating.
like it, just want to radiate in one direction. I want to radiate in north.
It's funny, before you came in, Pete, we were discussing amongst the four of us if we could survive together in a car for more than a day. And you're going for how long?
10 days.
10 days.
Cool Bean said she wouldn't go to the grocery store with us. But this is a good idea. Like I started to hear a little bit about this. I had questions. I thought maybe we could get in a vehicle together. Everybody
We
takes
can.
turns
It's a
driving.
huge car, guys. It's a 67 Bonneville.
All right.
I mean, it's like the size of a truck, and it's air conditioned.
Keep in mind, we're locked in this room together for 4 hours a day,
Yeah.
every day.
We only learned
The
about
interior
this.
in the Bonneville is just slightly larger than this room. I think you'll be okay. You can put your studio in the trunk.
Right.
Chelsea wasn't with us last time, and when you brought up the Great Race, we were somewhat unfamiliar with it.
Right.
And so she was fascinated when we were trying to explain. So first of all, there's a huge event coming up at Southern Distilling to sort of kick this off.
Right.
But this is a national pastime for people who do this every year.
And it's been going on for years.
Yeah.
So the first time I learned about it, I was actually in college in Northern California. We lived out in the middle of the boondocks. I mean, out in the middle of nowhere. And so there's this road that goes from the coast over to the Trinity Alps in Mount Shasta. It's called 299. Beautiful road, but out in the middle of nowhere, right? Think, like the Parkway. And I'm like looking out over the road and I see an old Ferrari, I see an old Bugatti, maybe a Model T, I don't know, but these amazing cars. And I'm like, what in the heck is going on? And so, of course, I follow and I figure out it's this thing called the Great Race Across America. And it's all about getting cars out of the museum, out of the garage, and putting them on the road and doing what they were made to do and driving them. But because you've got cars, some are more than 100 years old, it's not a race for speed. It's a time trial. So it's, you've got to go stop to stop, checkpoint to checkpoint within a certain period of time. So anyway, I had the bug, 25, 30 years ago when I was in college. Then fast forward, to about 3, 4 years ago, same thing kind of happens. We're out at our farm and these really cool cars are going by. It's the Great Race. Now we're in North Carolina. My daughter sees it. She's going nuts. We need to go find these guys. So the next morning we get up at 5 a.m. We figure out where they're staying and just go kind of, wedding crash it, for lack of a better term.
Right.
And we were hooked. And so we registered, and within 2 years we were accepted onto the racers, about 200 racers. And we did our inaugural event last year. My son drove, I navigated, and our then 14-year-old daughter did all of the, the GoPro and all that good stuff.
So Chelsea couldn't understand the fact that it's not, couldn't understand, but you're like, how is this a race? It's not exactly a race. It's a
competition.
Test of skills.
It's a competition. It's not a race for speed. So, the oldest car last year was a 1912 American LaFrance fire truck that had been converted into a race car. So how does that compete with my 1967 Bonneville?
Exactly.
Yeah, and the answer is that we're given a set of directions. We have no GPS, we have no phone. We're not ever going to see the freeway. It's all back roads. I mean, super country, one-lane stuff. Roughly 300 miles a day. And again, no map, no GPS, no phone. All you're giving is a very cryptic set of instructions. And when I say instructions, it's not like go 3 miles and turn left. It's like count this many trees, count this many signs. The way that it's planned out is that you've got to hit the checkpoints at just the right time. You can't be too early. You can't be too late. You don't know where the checkpoints are going to be. The race is designed as if you're going exactly the speed they tell you to go when they tell you to go, right? Cars don't work that way.
Things in the road.
Takes time to slow down, takes time to speed up, takes time to apex a turn. A turtle is in the road. You get behind a bicyclist, etc. So you've got to calculate all this and then figure out when to speed up, when to slow down so that you're always on that perfect time.
That's a lot.
If you're on that perfect time, you get an ace. We got 2 aces last year. We were thrilled. It was like unbelievable.
So there's an element for somebody who's watched what's the TV show, The Amazing Race? There's sort of that where they give you got to do this, this, and it's like very specific along the way stuff.
Just like that, yeah. Except for you're in a car and you're, going 3,000 miles the hard way.
Maybe with your family, which not everyone wants to do, but it worked well for you.
Well, I enjoyed it. I can't tell you that my son enjoyed it because he was driving,
right.
and I was like, I said go left, I meant go right, and so this is the high point though is that he got a chance to do a couple of bootleg turns like Smoking the Bandit right in the middle of some little downtowns. He's like, hey, it's perfectly legal because I'm here for the race, right? So
when we had talked to you about this before, I didn't realize that it was that sort of intricate where you were talking about signs and trees and stuff like that.
I'm exaggerating when I say trees, but we do have to count signs. It's like, at the 7th slow down 20 mile an hour right-hand curve sign, you've got to look for the next road and you want to go left on that road.
That's still, so there is no time off. You don't.
No. And that's everybody's like, oh, it must be wonderful. It's like this tour across America. It's what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
It was not that. I can't tell you what the innards of Alabama looked like last year because I was, in my document going, okay, 7 seconds, we got to do this. And you got timers and you've got all this stuff. It's a lot of fun, but it's a little fatiguing.
Well, you don't want to know about the innards of Alabama anyway.
Actually, we saw a lot of the United States, southeastern United States, and it was really cool. So one of the coolest things about it is that you're out in the middle of nowhere, and you've got little kids, and old people, and everybody in between just sitting on the side of the road waiting for you to come by. That's because they're so into it. When my son had this epiphany, he was like, everybody loves old cars. And it's true. The little kids, the old people, and everybody in between, they're all so into it.
Yeah, fascinating. I mean, I think everybody's fascinated by it and the fact that they're out there and they still run and all that.
Well, and the fact that you're bringing a national event in front of their single wide in the middle of nowhere, that's a pretty big deal,
That's true, too. Yeah.
I love it. I joke about Alabama, but I do love back roads. I love seeing people's lives. And I would love to go on a trip like this. I'm great at navigation, Wilcox, if you want to try it.
Hey,
I'm sure you
guys
think
keep
are.
dangling that. I mean, we're looking for crew members all the time. So,
is there some way we could not?
I got room for you, Chelsea.
We
We've
have
got
to do
room
the
in the
show
back
on the
seat.
road? Well, so it sounds like, and last time we talked to you about this, you're like, we're trying to put together an event that'll sort of be an unofficial kickoff of it. And now I see there's a ton of people who've already registered and are going to bring out their cars to Southern Distilling.
My amazing support team has put together a kickoff event, an official kickoff event. So it's on June the 13th. That's a Thursday. It starts at 5, runs from 5 to 9. I think we've got 65, 67 cars registered. It's kind of like a cruise-in car show. We'll have food trucks there. I think we're going to have some live music. It's just going to be a big family-friendly scene, car-centric.
That sounds fantastic.
And
a special edition, right?
Special edition, that's right. we're going to have a limited release, Great Race Across America single barrel selection that I personally picked out for the event, only available at the distillery. And then we're taking the rest of it, and it'll be distributed from literally, we start in Owensboro, Kentucky, kind of the heart of bourbon country, and then we'll finish up in Maine.
Where I've been to Kentucky and Maine.
Yeah, I have never been to Maine.
My husband will tell you all about Maine.
Okay.
But buckle up.
Yeah, he's right. Give Pete a little idea about what Maine holds in store for him.
I would say Maine is very friendly, but it's a strange place. It's very much, at least what I've experienced, it's all back roads. It's beautiful. Like the whole state is just
Don't they call it like a vacation wonderland?
vacation land.
Okay.
It is it's a great place to vacation.
Got to watch out for the moose.
Sometimes
Got to watch out for the people.
sometimes frogs will cover the road.
Wow, I'm looking forward to it.
And can people do you know your route enough that people could go outside?
So we
and
do
look for
not
you?
know the route, because you don't know your route until half an hour before your start time. We know where we're going to be stopping each day. So we have an official stop for lunch and an official stop for the end of that leg of the race. So there's 2 legs per day. And so we know where we're going to start from, the intermediate stop, and then the final stop.
Okay. So people would kind of have an idea also of where your stops would be, or people just going outside and just waiting to see if
That's a great
cars go
question.
by.
I think that's a great question, because I know last year there were people waiting for us, and it's like, how did they know? Because I didn't know. It's a good question.
That is interesting.
Yeah. There's not that many ways to get from point A to point B. I guess.
Right. I was going to say, in some of these towns, there's one way in and one way out.
Deduction.
Right. They're stopping there, so I know they got to come through at some point.
I think that the Great Race organizers, right before the leg starts, I think they do a big push out so that people know, where we're coming through. That's my story. I'm going to stick
that
with that
sounds
one.
good to me.
That sounds right.
So in addition to that, you're also doing Take That Hill. Have you been riding your bike?
Negative.
Would you let-
I've been thinking a lot about riding my bike.
That's the
all
first
you
step.
need.
I've been planning on riding my bike.
They did release what the kit is going to look like,
Oh.
and it looks pretty good.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I like that.
Sort of an homage to Vietnam veterans. It's the tiger stripe.
But
I
it's
thought it was
got-
going to be a picture of you.
But it's got the purple and green together.
Yep.
I like it.
You've got time to train.
Yeah.
Don't let Woody get on you.
Get on your bike.
I'm going to.
Okay.
Let him drive to Maine first, though.
Yeah, one thing at a time, for crying out loud. He's got to stretch to do the car ride. That's another piece of it that you didn't mention. Like, I would imagine there's got to be a lot of angst about the vehicle itself in terms of making sure it's ready to roll and that it's not
There's a
gonna
good bit
die.
of angst about that, but we've got our best people on it, so hopefully it's. We got some top secret stuff going on with the '67 Bonneville.
Okay.
OG NASCAR stuff going on right now.
Okay.
Can't talk about what's under the hood during
No.
inspection.
Oh, wow.
Certainly
So-
not.
I want to do this. I just want to ride along and tell you everything I see out the window while you're trying to navigate, which you'll love, Wilcox, if I just talk to you nonstop.
Yeah.
You guys have fun doing that.
Woody will be in the trunk.
Well, you obviously have your top people on helping the Charlotte FC win as well. Now that you've become an official partner, they seem to be killing it.
Yeah, they have
Right.
me to thank for that.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
is you for sure, and there's no question.
2 clean sheets in a row.
Yeah. I tell you what, I was so happy for those last 2 shutouts. I mean, I was like, man, that felt good, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's really moving forward. And now that we know the Panthers schedule,
Oh.
everything is coming into light. We were talking about that earlier about how it's a televised event when they unveil the NFL schedules. That's another level of America loving the NFL. It's
Right.
amazing. And the Panthers are going to Germany to play.
Yeah, they are.
Play the Giants.
Yeah.
It's a dream.
So
November 10th.
Yep. Munich.
We should go.
I'd love to be in Munich, but I don't really care to see the Giants in Munich.
I feel like this is a chance for Southern Distilling to spread their wings in Germany.
We talked a lot about that.
Mm-hmm.
It is tempting as it was, and I love Germany, and it's not a great market.
Really?
Yeah, it's just not a great market. So,
Interesting.
yeah,
Beverage
what do you think
choice?
that is? Are they
Personality?
they love gin. They love
Really?
gin.
really?
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that about it. I
Germans
just know
love
beer.
gin.
So actually, I was in Dusseldorf, which is in Germany,
Yeah.
last year March, and it was a great trip, but it was an export trip, so we were looking at export markets. Yeah, we've got some work to do in Germany to really. So when they associate bourbon with other well-known American labels that happen to have a lot of black in them and maybe a square bottle. And we're like, hey, you know what? There's a lot more to bourbon, a lot more to love than that one iconic brand, which we all know and love, but there's a lot more to the product. So we've got a little education to do.
Huh.
Yeah.
So what countries other than the U.S. over somewhere else off of this continent do love?
Well, so
bourbon
our
and all
biggest export market is actually on this continent. That's Canada.
that? Sure.
The next would be Australia, then Japan, Spain. But I would tell you that the Japanese love bourbon. They really appreciate bourbon, and they're willing to make it that investment in the higher quality products. So that's a big focus for us. And then the other export markets are where we see kind of emerging middle class with more disposable income. So we focus a lot on India, 1.4 billion people.
Wow.
And they drink whiskey.
Okay.
It's just not great whiskey. So if we can just get a little slice of that market.
Huh.
So that's kind of where our focus is on the export side.
Always something learned when Pete's here. And obviously you can get on the website, and we highly recommend taking the tour and just seeing what's right here. If you're in the Charlotte area or somewhere in the Carolinas, it's not something to miss.
So, and it's a really quick drive. Heath can tell you that I made it today in like 28 minutes. I may have exceeded the speed limit. I'm not sure. I think for normal humans, it's like 35 or 40 minutes. But in any case, it's just a quick drive right up 77. And you really can't miss it. Super, super easy, super convenient. It's not just a destination, but it's a destination with an attraction. The opportunity to go through a working large-scale distillery. You don't really get that outside of Kentucky, so it's a beautiful campus. And we love seeing new people. So,
and set aside June 13th. That sounds like that's going to be, it's always fun to see all the cars and, man, to sample that special edition. It sounds fantastic.
We'll see you there.
Yeah.